Alright guys, so this video is going to be an explanation of why I decided to move Facebook and Instagram off my main phone and put it on my old phone that I factory reset and covered in stickers and stuff like that. Now you might be thinking, oh my god, he's paranoid, right? Hear me out. I'm going to say this in the beginning as well. This video is not for everyone, right? If you think in the world right now it's a utopia and nothing's wrong with anything that's going on, this video is not for you. If you're concerned that big tech is influencing people in a negative way and things like this is the kind of people I kind of want to talk to. And the reason why making this video is because I want to encourage you guys to have conversations, right? Not just like in the comments or anything like that. If you want to, you can. But I want you to have conversations with people around you, right? I want you to spread this information that I'm going to be giving you guys to maybe help clarify and just start conversations to maybe get people caring more about why this is important. So in December of 2020, Instagram released some new terms and services, and into January I had finally gotten to sit down and read them, and what I found was really appalling, to be honest. What I did as a result of this is I took the Instagram app off of my phone. I never used the Facebook app before on any phone that I've owned because I've always kind of been off-put by Mark Zuckerberg and his cronies and things like this. I always used the browser to get to Facebook. Facebook has an app for Mozilla Firefox. It's not Facebook's app, but they have a thing called Facebook Container that contains the cookies. I was using an app called Brave, which is a browser to do most of my browsing on this phone with Facebook, so it wouldn't be able to touch so many things. But I moved that browser and everything here with the Instagram app on this old phone of mine that you can see I cracked a while ago. And probably the sketchiest thing I did was covering the cameras and stuff, and I'm kind of concerned about some things I saw in that movie, The Social Dilemma, where essentially a lot of these apps can watch your eyes with the facial recognition stuff to see where on the page you're looking at. Maybe that's not as legit as, you know, some of the other things I'm going to bring up, but it was a concern of mine that made me want to, you know, just do it for good measure. One other thing about this phone is it's on my guest network, right? So it's not talking to the rest of the devices on the house, and the reason I did that is because Instagram now allows the app to scan your home network for, you know, allegedly, you know, better advertising practices or something, so they can see your smart TV or something. Whatever it might be, I didn't like that. So this is on a separate network segment that can't talk to the rest of the house. Additionally, I took all the contacts off of here. Obviously, I had Instagram on this phone, which has all my contacts. They probably have access to all that stuff, which is why both you and I are getting all these calls about our car's extended warranty and all these things like this. So now you're probably wondering, why would I do that? What scared me and put me off about the terms and services that made me decide to do this drastic measure, as some of you might describe it? So a few things that I identified in there that kind of were off-putting was the access to the contacts, the ability to do the metadata on location data, camera access. They were able to do calls and SMS history and things like this. The main one that really scared me was the rights to my content, right? The content that you put out on Instagram, they have access to. I'm going to actually throw like a little screenshot that I took off of their website right there so you guys can take a look at that. And I highlighted what I did not like specifically about that stuff. And essentially they have an open-ended ability to modify these terms and services in accordance with what is already out there, right? You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, because they've kind of been overstepping these boundaries constantly since the terms and services that came out, you know, a couple years ago. But why does it matter? Why does all this privacy mumbo-jumbo matter in the first place? Well, I heard a quote recently that I kind of want to impart on you guys. I didn't come up with this, like I said, I got this from someone else, but it goes something to the effect of, saying you don't care about the right to the freedom of privacy because you don't have anything to hide is like saying you don't care about the freedom of speech because you don't have anything to say. It's kind of silly, right? So let's talk briefly about what Facebook has access to, that the general populace is aware of, right? So everything I touched on before, they have permissions to all that stuff and more. But they also know how you spend your money, right? Who you're friends with, how they spend their money, right? What you like and dislike, all these different things. And then they sell this information to advertisers and kind of let the advertiser, or they don't sell this information to advertisers, they sell access to this information to the advertisers so that they can use their platforms to display the ads, right? So what don't you know about what they use this information for, right? There are some things out there, like a product called Semantica. I'll put some information below about that, where these companies sell access to their databases and give API access to this information. The FBI is a good example, right? If they want to do a background check, they can use this information to do a background check on you. Maybe they're like, hey, I want to hire Jim over here, but let's run a background check. I want to know everything about Jim. And there we go. Boom. You can see all of his friends, all of these different things. Kind of build profiles about them. I want to know about Jim's dad. What does he do for a living and everything about him. Boom. And now you can kind of see what I mean. You can kind of start seeing they're going to be able to, or they are able to, leverage this information and kind of pick and choose whatever information they want to grab out of anyone that has information out there that the FBI or, local government doesn't already have on you. They can use this information. Now that's good, right? You don't want Russian spies and stuff in the government. There's obvious great implications and uses for tools like this. But there are companies that have access to these APIs and things like this as well. Banks are a good example, right? But there's other companies as well. So let's say I wanted to use this information to do a background check on you to make sure that you were going to be a good fit for the job, right? I need a new manager over here at whatever institution I have that is worth a lot of money and it has a lot of power. Let's check out Brad. Brad's going to be the new manager here. Oh, he's into metal music and he runs this crazy podcast. You know what? He will not be a good fit. I don't think that Brad's going to be a good fit. We're not going to hire him for those reasons, despite his qualifications. So you can kind of see what I mean, that people can be discriminatory with this stuff. But let's talk about some extreme examples, right? That was kind of a basic, you can imagine that that's probably something that's happened before example, but let's talk a little bit about some real world examples that have happened and what is possible in the future. So if you saw that movie on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, you would know that social media, Facebook specifically, was used in Myanmar. The government there was using it to use disinformation campaigns to build a huge stigma against Muslim people, and there were deaths and things involved with this. Like, shit got really fucking out of hand, as you can imagine. And that's what happens when a dictator or someone with a lot of power can utilize these tools and do some bad things. That's a real world example that did happen, right? Another recent example of some corrupt government stuff that happened was in Hong Kong, when Britain left their government leave Hong Kong and allowed China's communist government to take over and take siege. There were riots similar to things that were happening at the early part of 2020. Now you can see where I'm going with this, right? It's totally possible for really, really bad people to gain access to these tools and leverage them to do their bidding. So I'll give you a couple examples that, I'm gonna play a little game of, I don't want to stigmatize any one group of people, so I'm gonna pick some people that are, on the left per se, and then some people on the right, and give some examples of what could go wrong with this in America, right? So let's say, someone else like Trump gets into power, right? And he's super, super racist against Mexicans, even more than Trump. And as you can see, Trump had these detainee camps where he was separating families of the immigrants that he was able to detain and things like this. Now imagine what would happen if he got your cell phone and you were one of these immigrants and he wanted, access to your contacts and things. Maybe he doesn't need access to your cell phone because he can use the APIs to get access to this stuff because he's in the government, right? crazy stuff. I can find out who was in your house a week ago based on the network location data. You kind of see what I'm saying here? So this information exists out there, and these are real world ways that bad stuff could happen. Is that a real life thing that's going to happen? No, I hope not, right? But is it possible? Certainly. How about another example where we describe what could possibly happen to some people who are maybe more right-leaning, right? So I'm a gun owner, I'm a big gun advocate, big Second Amendment advocate, and maybe, let's say, this insurrection that happened at the Capitol, right? Maybe a lot of things go down because Biden's in now, and there's another riot, and they're shooting the place up, and now there's a new reason for them to outlaw guns, right? Maybe they're like, you know what, no more semi-automatic rifles. If you have them, you're going to turn them in. That's the new doctrine, right? So they start, looking, hey, let's see who's a registered gun owner, and then let's crack down on those guys and, say, hey, you're a law-abiding citizen, you got to turn this stuff in, right? But then maybe they don't get a good response out of that, and they're like, you know what? Let's check their social media to see what kind of weapons these people have. Let's see when they go to the gun range, who's showing up to the gun range with the location data we can get access to. Let's take a look at some of these pictures. Is what got turned in the same as what I'm seeing in these pictures? Oh, in that one picture right there, is that a lower 80% modified to be a rifle that's not registered? You can see where I'm going with this, guys. Maybe you can come up with an example that's more applicable to you, right? Any kind of creed of people that are being oppressed or anything like that, you can imagine what these tools could do in the wrong hands. So as you can see, the power that these big tech companies have is astounding. One example, during that insurrection, Trump threw some tweets out there. Twitter says, you know what? We don't like anything that you're saying. You're not helping the situation anymore. Bam, you're blocked off all our platform. And then all these other tech companies were like, you know what? Yeah, fuck you, Donald Trump. You're out of here. And he was blocked on all of these platforms. Silenced the President of the United States' voice. How crazy is that shit? So, as you can see, these companies have some crazy power. And another example that's been going on pretty recent in the news is what's going on with the GameStop stuff, right? For those of you that don't know, I'll touch on it briefly. These Redditors started buying these stocks that were being shorted by these hedge funds, and a lot of money started getting lost, so they started demonizing the Redditors that are just trying to make some money doing nothing wrong, nothing that these big hedge funds haven't already been doing for years, and maybe, was one of the reasons that shit crashed back in 2008. So guys, I'm going to leave you with this. Start having these conversations more. Start caring about this stuff a little more. And start paying attention to things a little more, okay? Obviously, you're not going to be able to stop these tech companies from doing anything with the information that they already have about you. But we can be more aware and cognizant of what we give them in the future and how we give it to them. I'm not saying you got to cover your camera with a sticker. I'm just saying that you guys should take more responsibility on this stuff and encourage the people around you to do the same. And maybe legislation will come out to make it so that this stuff can't affect us in the ways that it's doing it anymore. It's a long shot. But if you saw The Social Dilemma, it's the only shot we got.